Bay of Port Susan towards the Cascade Mountains here. Today's original writings by Paramhansa Yogananda will be on the theme of going beyond the breath. This is a transcription of a talk he gave, and I will start with a song by Swami Kriyananda.
Long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion, offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Dal mio cuore.
Okay, will you come? God will come when we become breathless. Yogananda wrote this, gave this talk rather, on January of 1947, and he gave this quote: "There is no greater joy, no suffering I cannot embrace if it makes someone else happy." There are so many people seeking this path now who need advice. Now he begins with aphorism 31 from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and it goes like this: pain, despair, nervousness, inhalation, exhalation, these are the accompaniments of the cause of distraction. Then I'll read a little bit about what Yogananda said. Pain, despair, nervousness are all destructive to spiritual realization. Nervousness is like a mirror. When you move the mirror, you cannot clearly reflect anything in it. So when your nerves rattle, they cannot mirror God. Nerves must be like steel. Whales move in the ocean, but the ocean doesn't show it. So all difficulties will come to you, but God will show you the way if you will remain steadfast and calm. Those who are wise and live in God consciousness do not worry about the present or the past or the future, but live in the eternal presence of God. He goes on to talk about how nervousness depletes your spiritual energy as well as distorts your spiritual mirror. Then he goes into talking about the core subject, which is breathlessness, and he talks about how breath is the mortal condition for existence, for inhalation and exhalation keep you bound to this body. That cord of breath goes away or slows during sleep, and you are not conscious of it. That is while you can feel the astral land in your sleep. It seems that the condition of death is that you cannot enter the astral world, as long as you are attached to the breath. Inhalation and expiration are a great detriment on the spiritual path, says Patanjali. There is a definite way to overcome the breath cycle. In Kriya Yoga, Yogananda spoke, what happens? If you take in more oxygen, it changes the life current, changes into life current. And the life current goes around the spine and electrifies the entire body, so there is no waste product, and the blood doesn't have to carry food to the cells. They become electrified like a dry battery. They become charged by the divine power. Science tells us that 1 gram of flesh has enough current to run the city of Chicago for 2 days. Why not then charge the body with divine current? That doesn't mean you should stop eating food and stop breathing, but it says when you sit still, you should control the breath. When you sleep, you forget the breath, If you remember the breath, you cannot sleep. Isn't that interesting? He goes on to talk about how the subconscious state of sleep, it's an interesting point of view. He says the subconscious represents the past, everything we've done in the past. And superconsciousness is in the present tense. Okay, so you bypass the subconscious state to go into the superconscious state. Okay. As soon as you drive from your altar, the altar of the mind, all sensations, then the infinite comes. Remember that Patanjali says pain, despair, nervousness, and breath are the cause of distraction in meditation. It is wonderful, it is marvelous, God is so kind. I never realized how kind, for he tests his devotees very hard, for your love must be supreme. And loyalty to the Guru and the teachings must be unconditional. But in the sincerity of true souls, God is made manifest. It is your sincerity that our souls become welded into the infinite. Unswerving loyalty is necessary. So many have tried to take me away from my Guru. Isn't that interesting? I don't know what he means by that. But we have enough of our own distractions and desires and fears, obviously. But it's also true that when one commits to the spiritual path, and especially not merely in secret, you'll find from time to time people trying to convince you that this guru is better or this teaching is better and so on. I think we all encounter that from time to time. The only wealth that nothing can take away is when you sit in that light beyond the atoms. Then you'll know you are no longer a mortal being. So learn to be more calm. Practice Kriya Yoga. Watch the breath in the Hong Sau technique. Get rid of the breath, because when you do Kriya, your blood will be so charged it won't require oxygen. Do away with the breath. Doing away with the breath is possible with Kriya Yoga. Okay. When everything in your body is charged with the light of God, you don't need to breathe, drink, nor eat. And then he mentions the examples of Giribala in India and Teresa Neumann in Germany, both woman saints he mentions in his autobiography who went decades without eating or drinking. Okay. There are millions of volts of electricity within you. It is here in the body that volts of current are destructive, but there in the astral world the lights are so cooling, so soothing. Watch the breath in Hong Sau, then you will know you are made in the image of God, and you don't have to be tied to oxygen and food. You are that immortal light. And so we often encounter in the practice of yoga, especially Hatha yoga, but also in other forms of meditation, the different techniques of, pranayama and so on. But not that many people, I think, teachers of these things, that is, not that many emphasize that these techniques of breath control are there in order to go beyond the breath, in order to be breathless, or at least for most of us, learn how to be a true yogi and quiet the heart. The heart controls the breath, so we quiet the heart, but we work from the outside in. So we start with controlling the breath, oxygenating the body, decarbonizing the bloodstream, bring the metabolism into stasis, into equilibrium, and by sitting, closing your eyes, not being active, calming the thoughts, then the body doesn't need a lot of oxygen, you see, and so it can slow down. And as it slows down, our ability to internalize our awareness and concentrate on some, quote, object of meditation, which can be the breath itself, which is one of the greatest obstacles, because it's the one greatest objects of meditation, rather, because it is an obstacle to deep concentration. And it's like feedback to a microphone, but in the opposite direction, which is you focus on the breath, the mind becomes calm. As the mind becomes calm, your focus on the breath becomes steady. The other aspect of observing the breath, and there are other things to observe, including chanting silently a mantra and focusing on an image, let's say, of God or a guru, or focusing on the quality and vibration of one of the higher states, such as peace or calmness or joy or love, or listening to the inner sounds, or trying to gaze into the spiritual eye and see the jyoti, the inner light. All of these things are worthwhile objects of meditation. But one of the greatest techniques in that process of calming the heart and the breath is found by gazing upwards and through the point between the eyebrows. Not with tension, calmly, of course, but if you forget something, you want to remember somebody's name, you look up, right? When you feel inspired, you look outside, as I'm doing, over this panoramic scene of the bay and the mountains and the clouds, and you stop. The mind automatically stops when you're focused on something. And so watching the spiritual eye, or the point between the eyebrows, watching the breath, using a mantra, and then in the case of Kriya, energetically energizing the bloodstream and decarbonizing the bloodstream and focusing on the subtle body and the subtle flow of energy that causes the inhalation. We go right to the source then in Kriya. These are all the ways that a true yogi, be thou a yogi, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. This is how we calm the mirror of the mind and begin slowly to see what is true, to see the self made in the image of God. It's a beautiful practice and doesn't require a belief system per se. You want to have faith in the technique, of course, and those of us who enter into a guru-disciple relationship understand that there is a higher power. We're seeking a higher power, but the power to seek the higher power comes from that higher power, not from the self. The physical body and the mind are made just the opposite. They're made to stay busy and to stay aware and watch out for tigers and lions and bears and, all sorts of things that can assault us. We're wired for divinity in one sense, but in the animalistic sense, we're wired for self-aggrandizement, self-protection, fight or flight. We sort of have to know who butters our bread. I just made that up. And meaning we come from above. We may have come from below, but the very below comes from above. Okay, enough for that. Exhale. Stop, look, and listen. Imagine you're at a railroad crossing, and all shall be revealed.